But how
once so majestic and proud, what I would have given to send rain down upon the body of Hussein.
Are you in court for raping English girls? Remember? You're here defending the paedophile. I'm here defending your dad. These women are here defending the paedophile. You're here defending.
we don't need a TV channel because we've got mosques.
We have Islamic centres that are always open.
We have schools teaching Islam.
Hijab is part of a school uniform.
Islam has come and it's established here in the West.
And everyone's happy.
They love us, our food, our fashion.
Our culture.
The media is always on our side.
We've got plenty of English speakers, plenty of English books.
And plenty of places to go and learn in the English language.
Let's be real.
Let's get active.
Be more involved.
ImamHusseinFree.tv.
Safety and his rare appearance to be hastened, and for the relieving from the various kinds of disasters and diseases. Imam Hussein Media Group invites all the believers all around the world, men and women, to join this campaign and supplicate to the Almighty by reciting Ziyarat al-Shura for 40 days. You can also invite others to join this campaign and give them the opportunity of joining this universal campaign in resorting to Imam al-Hussein, peace be upon him. Imam Hussein Media Group, public relations number +44 7939 91716.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a live show, and if you have a question that you'd like to ask us, send us your questions via the WhatsApp number. Alternatively, give us an email at ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or give us a call here in the studio live, and inshallah, me and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your questions. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali March. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing this evening?
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, Sheikhna. Sheikhna, as you know, every episode we have a list of questions and on different random topics. Let us begin with, well, I was going to say partnership, but it's more to do with, sharing property and so forth. So if one individual surrenders his land or, leases out his land to someone who plants trees and so forth, and, when it comes to the fruit and the harvest of these trees, does the landowner, does he have a share in it?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. This type of transaction is known as مغارسة, which means tree plantation scheme or deal or transaction, in which both come together. One is giving this piece of land, hiring this land to this individual, and the other would harvest, would plant and harvest the fruits and the vegetables and so forth. And of course, this is a valid transaction. It is allowed, but it all depends on the agreement between the two sides. If that individual invested something, for example, in this land, then he gets a share. So it depends on the deal and agreement between the two sides.
I see, excellent. Sheikhna, according to His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi, when it comes to an individual who's performing wudu, and let's say he's performing the part where you wash your arms and he's doing his right arm, he knows he's performed the action, but he's not sure, did I do it properly? Did I, was it from the top of the elbow all the way down to the fingertip? Did I miss any part? Did I go the opposite direction, which I shouldn't have? And he's still performing his wudu. What does an individual do in that situation?
As long as he is still in the wudu process, he needs to repeat the act correctly. So if he thinks that he did his right arm wash in a incorrect way, then he needs to correct it, do the wudu again in the right arm, and then continue with his wudu to the end. Okay. And that which can allow him to start the salah.
I see, excellent. Shaykhna, transactions and paying for items and so forth, if I was to perform ghusl, I need to perform ghusl. I go to a public bath, and as you are aware, public baths, you have to pay a fee for it. If I use money, mathalan, that was from haram source, whether I stole the money or maybe I haven't paid khums, I'm eligible to pay khums, I haven't paid my khums, I use that money to pay to do my ghusl in the public bath. Is my ghusl valid or is it batil?
You see, the ghusl would be batil, especially if somebody doesn't want to pay the fee for the bath. And this was in the old times when they had public baths in each area, because in those days they didn't have running water in every house. So they had public baths.
Yes.
So for the individual to go there and to have bath without paying the fee, and that would constitute to an invalid ghusl, the wajib ghusl. Unless the owner of the bath would accept not to get the payment, so that would be fine. Then the ghusl is valid, otherwise it's invalid. I think we have similar scenarios in this time where you have the gym and you have the swimming pools, for example, and you have the showers. So if somebody goes inside those premises and uses and takes a shower with the intention of ghusl, the wajib ghusl, and he doesn't pay the fee, we have similar issues here as well. So you can actually compare the situation with today's situation. So the one should pay the fee to the owner in order to have this ghusl, which is an obligatory ghusl for the purpose of salah and such like, to be valid. Otherwise, there's a problem with it.
Shaykhna, the mosque, the Husseiniya, the Islamic centers that we have, part of our job is to do tabligh and also to educate people about our religions. So what is the ruling in regards to non-Muslims, whether they are Kitabi or non-Kitabi, to come to our centers in order for them to learn more and understand our religion better? Are they allowed to actually attend and come in?
You see, we can actually meet with them and discuss this issue with them and guide them through other means, not necessarily to come to our centers or to the mosques, for example. Of course, there's a difference between the Islamic centers and mosques. If the place is mosque, then there's a special ahkam for the mosques, other than the centers. I mean, yes, if they are non-Muslims, they can't enter the mosques, and there are reasons for it. But not to forget that even Muslims, in some cases, they're not allowed to enter those mosques, the holy places, such as a Muslim who is in the state of janaba, the woman who is in the state of the monthly cycle. She is not allowed, and he's not allowed to enter into the mosque unless they are purified.
Correct.
So even for the non-Muslims, to enter these places, they have to be purified by the purification of Islam and the Aqidah, the true guided Aqidah. So even the Muslims, so we have the same issue as well, that you have to do the ghusl wajib to be able to enter the holy mosque, let's say the Medina or Mecca. Otherwise you can't even pass through those two holy sites and mosques with the state of janaba, for example. So we have other means now. We have the technology. You can talk to them, through the Skype and so forth, and send the information by the internet. let's say, with files, let's say, PDF and so forth. And gradually they can come through, and then, of course, if there's a necessity, then that's a different issue, of course.
Shaykhna, we were just discussing before earlier in regards to gyms and swimming pools and things like that. As a male, a practicing Muslim man, some of these gyms that we attend are, mixed genders. So when we go there, we will see, ladies there. As a Muslim man, what is the ruling for us? Because some of these ladies are not appropriately dressed in what we would call modest. Not saying that these women are not modest. The thing is that women that attend to the gym have a different attire to wear when they want to have a workout and so forth. So what is the ruling for us males who are practicing Muslims to go to mixed gender gyms? And furthermore, what's the ruling if the gentleman, the man, the Muslim brother, he doesn't look with lust or at these people? Maybe he lowers his gaze, or he tries to not look in the direction of where there are women who are actually performing their workout and so forth.
You see, attending the swimming pools, the mixed ones, where you have the men and women in one pool, and of course dressed,
indecently,
let's say indecently, or 80–90% revealing the body. It's not permissible, of course. And this is an issue in which many of our youth Muslims would not neglect and still attend. The fatwa is clear that such places where there's an indecently dressed by, let's say, by the female side, then if it results in the sin and haram, then of course it's not permissible. I even was looking at the fatwa Ayatollah Sistani. He said it's absolutely haram to attend in such places, mixed swimming pools. So there's no way you can attend, because there's always lust, temptation around wherever you look. Can you actually refrain from looking? Refrain from paying attention to those who are swimming, or let's say laying down on the chairs or floor, for example, with their revealed body, most of it. So as a precaution, even the Sayyid mentions here that to avoid even going to such places, even without committing a sin. Because these places usually attracts the one towards the act of sin. It's an inappropriate place to go there. I know there's a need for swimming, that's something for the well-being of the individual, but I've seen, to be honest, some non-Muslims, such as the Jewish community, they have tried to rent out an hour a week, or at least an hour to 2 hours a week, from the swimming pool, local ones, to have only men's session and women's session separately. We can do the same. We can ask our local gym and swimming pool to give us a slot a week for the gentlemen and for the ladies as well. Because even our sisters, our ladies, the Muslim ladies, they need also the swimming pool. So this is the right as well. So I think this is the best option and method, is to create a decent environment, a halal environment for our youth and for our elderly as well, and for our sisters as well.
Sheikh, what about in the workplace, schools and universities and such alike? Because it's very, very difficult here in the West, especially, to not have a mixed gathering. We go on the bus, it's mixed. You go into a shopping mall or a restaurant, or so, it's always mixed. So according to His Eminence Sayyid Sistani, Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, Hafidhullah, what is the hukum here? Are we actually allowed to work with mixed, opposite genders in the office?
I mean, yes, if there is no fear in falling into the act of sin and haram, that's fine. I mean, we go to the Hajj, for example, we meet in the same tawaf. There's men and women, for example, in other public places, at work as well. But we have to make sure at all levels we respect the modesty and the chastity and the hijab issue of the women. And even the men, they should also protect their modesty and chastity, and when they come with the opposite gender. Both sides should respect each other's affairs, so we shouldn't breach this red line of haram by, for example, cracking jokes which leads to the haram conversation and looking and so forth. So we have to avoid anything that leads to the haram. But normally you just sit down at your work, you know, everyone is busy in his work. That should be have no issue as long as there's no haram involved in this workplace.
Shaykhna, speaking of work and transactions, if one person was to lend someone something, is he allowed to ask for more back before? So let's say if somebody wants to borrow 10 kg of flour, so Mr. B wants flour from Mr. A. Mr. A says, I'll give you 10 kg, but I want 12 kg back in return. This sort of transaction, is this valid when it comes to Islamic Sharia?
That is definitely usury or riba. Imagine that if I tell you I'll give you 10 kilograms of basmati rice, long grain, best quality, but in return of, let's say, 15 kilograms of the short grain, low quality rice, then that extra 5 kilo is riba.
Mm-hmm.
It's not allowed because it's been weighted. So the weight things that, such as to do with wheat and barley and these things, you're not allowed to give the difference, exchange in difference. The excess, the extra would cause the riba. And same applies with gold and silver. When you exchange your gold, make sure you don't exchange it. I'm giving my golden ring, used one, to buy a new one, and I'm giving mine one which has more weight in exchange of less weight, because that's brand new.
Mm-hmm.
That's excess is riba. So we have to make sure that we understand in the hukm of the Sharia with regards to exchange of buying and selling.
Speaking of Sharia, Shaykhna, and studying to a level of becoming a mujtahid, now our sisters, can they become mujtahids or mujtahidas as they're known as, studying to a level when they can derive Islamic law from themselves using the techniques of usul fiqh as well as referring back to the Quran and the Hadith in order to extrapolate and to form fatwa in accordance to His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Wahid Khorasani. I believe he talks about this. So in general, can a female reach the level of mujtahida where she doesn't need to follow a marja anymore and she can make her own laws in regards to the Sharia?
Yes, His Eminence mentions that she can actually become mujtahida, but she should act upon her own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, she cannot announce her marja'iyya and have followers like other maraja' and ulama in Najaf and Qum. No, she can't. She can actually reach that level of ijtihad to act upon her own opinions in this field. And of course there are reasons for this, that why in Islam a woman cannot become a marja', a jurist, or a judge, and so forth. There are reasons given in the books that one can go and refer back to find why does Islam prevents from women to reach such important and pivotal positions in Sharia.
I guess it's important here to mention also, it's not that Islam doesn't see women capable of doing so, but there are other factors taken into account in terms of suitability and things like that. Inshallah, that's a discussion for another time. We're going to go to a break shortly, and inshallah join us after the break as we continue answering your questions here on Ahkam SOS. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Sharif's safety and his rare appearance to be hastened, and for the relieving from the various kinds of disasters and diseases. Imam Hussein Media Group invites all the believers all around the world, men and women, to join this campaign and supplicate to the Almighty by reciting Ziyarat al-Shura for 40 days. You can also invite others to join this campaign and give them the opportunity of joining this universal campaign in resorting to Imam al-Hussein, peace be upon him.
Imam Hussein Media Group, public relations number +44 7939 917 16.
Imam Hussein Media Group is a virtual university that works on a global scale to spread the true message of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt's peace and blessings be upon them. Imam Hussein TV was established 10 years ago in the city of Isfahan, Iran. We work to cover all aspects of religion, Islamic jurisprudence, politics, philosophy, and many more, and aim to bring the public's attention to the righteous Islamic sect, Shia Islam. Our ultimate goal as a media group is to convey the interpretations of the Holy Quran, as well as the traditions and knowledge of the Holy Prophet and his progeny. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon them. Our objectives are to protect and safeguard the Shia youth from the destructive impact of immoral ideologies, standing up against injustice by documenting the oppression of Shia across the globe, as well as encouraging peace and unity amongst the Muslims. To reach our aims and serve the Muslim Ummah, we require a budget that would cover all the expenses for our productions, allowing us to work on different projects. Imam Hussein Media Group is a crowd-funded project. We have no sales nor do we charge for our services. We solely rely on monthly payments, financial contributions, donations, religious alms, and generous gifts. The expenses of each production varies depending on the type of project and the style of filming. There are many elements to a production that requires time and capital. The producer must analyze the costs of the venue hire, equipment, transport, feature fees, set design, staff support, and further additional costs. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, narrated, "The best of people is he from whom people benefit." It is up to you to help the Muslim Ummah come together and help guide the youth in remaining on the correct path of Islam. To take part in this global conquest and to spread the message of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, please visit www.imamhussein3.tv or give us a call on +44 0203 515 0199. You can also contact us via WhatsApp, Telegram, SMS, or even email us on donate@imamhussein.tv. Let's work together hand in hand to elevate the faith of our Shia youth today.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Just a quick reminder to all our viewers that this is a live show, so if you have a question that you'd like me and the Sheikh to discuss, send your questions in via the WhatsApp, the email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or alternatively give us a call on 0203 515 0199, and inshallah me and the Sheikh will be more than happy to answer and discuss your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikhna, the next question is in regards to no access of water. So, we have a couple, husband and wife. He wants to perform ghusl. There's no water available. And he wants to go and have marital relations with his wife. Is he allowed to do tayammum instead of ghusl? So, tayammum in place of the ghusl. and then, you know, go and see his wife. Is he allowed to do so?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yes, it is permissible for him to actually initiate this intercourse relationship while there's no water, and even if the salah time has begun and there's salah, so he does, you know, after this relationship he would go and do tayammum and start the salah. There's no issue with it, because this taklif now, his duty is to perform the tayammum, so that should be no issue with it at all.
I see. Shaykh, we've got a question that's coming via the email. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have a question for the Ahkam SOS program. What is the ruling on invoking the spirits of the dead or communicating with them if that has dire effects on the psychology of the individual and causes harm to individuals, the living and the dead? So here, invoking the spirits, trying to speak to those who have passed away. I'm sure brothers and sisters have seen it in the films. Maybe they grew up playing with Luigi boards and stuff like that. Islamically speaking here, having psychological effects and harm on both the living and the dead, what is the Islamic ruling here?
Well, given the scenario here, it is not permissible. You know, any kind of harm is not allowed on an individual. So if that harms them, then it's not allowed.
Fair enough. Shaykhna, is it permissible to say salam to followers of other religions? And what if those other people as well say salam to us? How, you know, are we allowed to give the reply? I mean, I remember at school, so many of my non-Muslim friends would say salam to each other as well as myself. Even, you know, at work and things like that, you'll have people who are cultured and understand the different greetings that different people and different cultures and different backgrounds have, and they'll use a separate greeting with each different individual. So, according to His Eminence, the late Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi rahmatullah alayhi, what does he say in regards to this?
His Eminence mentions that yes, it is permissible, and also permissible to return the greeting to those who greet you from other religions. That's fine. But he would mention that the reply should be by saying the minimum, such as alaykum, for example, to them. So yes, you're allowed to greet them. But let me mention two hadiths with regard to greeting each other as believers, as Muslims. This first narration from Imam Ali alayhi salam, where he stated, As-salam sab'un hasana, saying salam and replying the salam, in overall there are 70 rewards and hasana involved. But who gets the more? That's the importance. تسعة وستون للمبتدئ, 69 is for the one who initiates the salam. The one who says salamun alaikum, he starts the salam. He gets 99% of the reward. وواحدة للراد, and one hasana gets the one who says wa alaikum salam. He responds back.
Okay.
So this is how the Islam encourages that you spread the salam, as in the hadith, that spread the salam in the world. إفشاء السلام في العالم. The Prophet ﷺ used to initiate the salam himself, always. He would start saying salamun alaikum. So we have to learn from Rasulullah ﷺ and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to be always the first to say salamun alaikum, and to spread the salam towards the
99% of the thawab, huh?
Goes to the one who starts the salam first. Exactly.
And 1% for the one who replies.
And also another hadith, let me mention, and then we can continue. From Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, Abu Abdullah, he said, من التواضع أن تسلم على من لقيت. It is out of humbleness to say salam to whoever you meet on your way. So in the street, in the shopkeepers, anywhere you go, you will say salamun alaikum. And that was the akhlaq of Ahlul Bayt and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And even our ulama, they used to say even salam to the children, to this extent. Imagine saying salam alaikum to the children. So, subhanallah, we have to learn from those great individuals how to say salam.
Ahsan. Salam alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Shaykhna, canned foods that come from all over the world we have, Sometimes they're from Muslim countries, sometimes they're not from Muslim countries. Are we allowed to consume those canned foods that are from non-Muslim countries?
If they are vegetable ones, then yes, you're allowed. But if they are meaty ones, chicken, meat, then of course you're not allowed to consume because they are from non-Muslim countries. But anything comes from the Muslim countries, be it a vegetable or meaty ones or chicken ones, you're allowed to consume. The issue is only with regards to the meat coming from the non-Muslim countries, so you have to avoid it.
Sheikh, as you know, when it comes to food, there's different methods and different techniques of, harvesting and also farming as well, fish farming in particular. Here in developed countries in the West, fish farming is done in order to, to keep up with the demand of the people. So sometimes the feed that they give these fish is not necessarily halal. If the fish are not being fed in a halal manner, are we allowed to actually purchase and consume this fish as well?
Well, it doesn't make the fish haram if you give it haram food. The situation in which makes the fish haram when the fish is fed with human feces.
Okay.
That's the problem. And for let's say 2 or 3 days consecutively, that's where makes this fish haram to be consumed. So in order to make it halal to be consumed afterwards, is to allow it for 1 full day to feed it with halal food, or let's say with tahir food, for example, instead of the human feces. Then this animal becomes halal to consume and tahir. Otherwise you have to avoid it.
Okay. Sheikh, I got a question here from the WhatsApp. A little controversial, so be prepared. And for the brothers and sisters as well, please excuse my language, as the references is a bit difficult to discuss, but here we go. We do discuss these topics. Sheikhna, if one is to spend his money and in what we call to give fees to the brothel keeper or the owner of a brothel or indecent club such alike, what is this Sharia ruling on this?
Of course, the money gained through this type of transactions is haram, and the one should return this money to the original owners. You cannot actually, it's all haram in terms of setting up this type of business, which is all haram. It takes the barakah, it brings disease and so forth, breaks up the families and so forth, crimes and other defects within this business. In Kitab Man La Yahdhuruhu al-Faqih by Saduq, he mentions that it is narrated that Ajru al-Zaniya suht, the money that this indecent woman gains from the haram business, this haram business, is suht. Suht means severely forbidden, or haram means
strictly.
Severely. Sometimes you say it's haram to eat crabs. Yes. That's fine. But sometimes it's severely haram.
Like pork.
Severely haram to do this act that you actually...
It's an extreme haram.
You set a business and transaction all in haram. That you bring 2 individuals from opposite agenda to commit haram act in return of sum of money. So such business, such act is absolutely haram and should be avoided, and the money gained is haram. The one should fear Allah Azza wa Jal and avoid such business and such dealings. And Allah Azza wa Jal provided the halal means in terms of the marriage. The one can go and get married and live their life happily, and Allah will be the raziq and the sustainer for those couple in which they get married. Even if they're poor, Allah will, in the Holy Quran states that Allah will make them rich. يُغْنِهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. So the one should have hope in Allah Azza wa Jal, not the hope in the Satan and his followers.
Ahsan, well put. Sheikhna, what is the ruling in regards to looking at the private parts of other people?
Well, it's absolutely haram for the one to look at those individuals when they have no proper clothing on their body, Of course, for the woman, you can't look if you're a man, except on the face and the hands, without lust, without temptation, without shahwa. That's the main issue. But with regard to the kitabi, but in overall, looking at the one's the private part is not permissible unless if they are married couples. That's the exception. And if it's like a baby, for example, you're trying to change the nappies and so forth, that's the exception. Okay. But other than that, no one should avoid.
Strictly forbidden. What about here for men in the West, where we have non-Muslim women who don't observe the hijab? So what are the limitations here for Muslim men in the West when it comes to women who are not Muslim and not practicing hijab?
I think I've just answered now that you only are allowed to look at the face and the handcuffs. That's the max you can look, without lust, without temptation, without shahwa. That's what is allowed. But as mentioned, but they say that as a precaution, wajib precaution, the one should not look at other than their faces and hands. That's the precaution, even without lust, just to keep in the safe side. So you go for an interview, let's say job interview, hospital appointment, just at the face and the hands. Don't look at the rest of the body parts.
I see. Ahsan. Shaykh, a final question for this evening, and that's come in, and it is: what is the ruling for a halal meat animal that does not have gushing blood, such as fish, if it dies naturally?
Such animals, as you mentioned, the fish, if it dies naturally in the water, not being hunted by a human being, then it becomes like a...
it's a corpse, isn't it?
Corpse, yeah, meat, you can't really consume it, but it remains tahir.
Okay.
Because it's not
you're not
part
allowed
of
to eat it.
You're not allowed
if
to
you
eat
touch it, you don't have to do
that's fine, yeah.
wash your hands with
because
it.
it's not part of the animals with gushing blood, just the sheep, the cow, and so forth. So tahir, but you can't consume. I think we mentioned last episode about if you slaughter the bear towards the qibla in the halal way, you can, the skin becomes tahir, but
the meat is
you can't still consume the meat.
I remember,
exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Shaykhna. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, and like today we've had some questions, may have been uncomfortable, taboo topics, but as we've said before, it is our duty to give you the answers in accordance to our maraja, our grand maraja who are over my shoulder here. So if you have any question you'd like to ask, there's no topic silly or taboo or discomforting for us. We will do our best. If it is an answer you want from a certain marja, we will do our best to contact the official offices and the official representatives to get that answer for you. So if you have a question, send it in via the WhatsApp, the email address, or alternatively give us a call here in the studio. Inshallah, we'll do our best to get your answer. Me and Sheikh now will be back on Wednesday night at 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV3. Join us then for another episode of Ahkam SOS. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Imam Hussein Media Group, out of respect to its audience, wants to be available